so our objective is to learn about the levels of organization, the ecosystem, and how biodiversity helps keep a stable environment. Now, by the end of this period, you should be able to answer, is the biodiversity in our area enough to sustain a stable ecosystem? Why or why not? So we're starting off with levels of organization, okay, which is your foldable. Now, you should have all these definitions already done, but I'm going to kind of go through them, and if you need to add something in there, you may, but you don't necessarily have to, okay? Now, everything is obviously organized in a specific way. Technically, if you really think about it, everything is organized from something small and builds up to something bigger, okay? We started off the year looking at chemistry. So, if we think of chemistry, what is the basic thing of all matter? Atoms. So, we started off by looking at atoms, and then we saw that atoms come together and make molecules to form compounds. Both of those are still non-living. Just by themselves, they're not living systems, correct? But are they necessary for life?
Yes.
Yes. Specifically, which elements are necessary for life? Carbon. Chunks. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Now, those elements are inorganic compounds and living compounds. Now, the ones that are in every single one are carbon and hydrogen. Carbon, hydrogen, and to a certain point, oxygen. So carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, in every single living thing, you're going to find those three elements. Every single one, regardless. In your test, you had a question about organic compounds, and it said always. Because they actually had, I think, nitrogen in there too. Okay. Carbon. Well, but water is not an element, though. It asks you for elements. So, since it asks you for elements, you should have thrown out water immediately. Right? And then the other three were carbon, nitrogen,
and
phosphorus. Okay, phosphorus. So, throwing out phosphorus out immediately because it's not part of chunks. But carbon and nitrogen are both part of chunks, right? But since it said always, the answer would have been carbon.
Oh, wait.
Hopefully y'all answered it right.
I did.
Okay?
Yes.
Then we see that those molecules make organelles. The organelles make cells. Okay? Cells become tissue. Tissue becomes organ. Organ becomes organ system. And then we go to organism. Now we're going to look at those levels of organization, cell to organism, in about a week. But we're starting off with the environment. So we have to start off with the natural organism. And an organism is just basically a living thing, any living thing. It can be unicellular, meaning it has one cell, or it can be multicellular, such as us. Now, if it's multicellular, you're going to have something that has systems, or that has those cells grouped in specific functions. So we start off with organism, which just basically is one living thing. It can be one cell or multicellular, but it's still an organism. Then you go to a population. A population is basically the same type of organism living together in the same area. Okay? So a population would be all of the fire ants in a specific area. All of the swallows in a specific area. It's a type of bird. So it has to be the same species. Okay? So a population would not be all the birds out there. No, a population is every single organism of the same type of bird. Or every single organism of the same type of insect. So a population is in all the insects out there. The fire ants are one population. Okay? The mosquitoes would be another population. So each population has to do with all the organisms of the same species within an area. So that's your population. Then, in a specific area, they're not by themselves. There's other populations there. There's a community. A community is where a bunch of different populations are living together, but not only living together, they relate to each other. There's either competition, meaning they're competing for the same water, the same food. Predator-prey, meaning one is getting eaten. Okay? One is hunting. symbiotic relations, which we're going to get to on Thursday, which looks at parasitism, mutualism, and commensalism. So in a community, you're looking at every population in that community and how they relate to each other. Okay? Because all the populations are going to need each other. Then from a community, you go up to an ecosystem. An ecosystem is all the biotic and abiotic things or organisms within an area. Biotic meaning living, abiotic meaning non-living. Those are two words you need to make sure you know. Okay? Now remember in science I said if you find some prefixes and you know them, it's easy. Biotic. Bio is a prefix. Bio, the prefix, means life. Think about it. If you read a biography, what are you reading?
Their life.
Their life. The prefix bio means life.
What does auto mean? What's the auto part?
Auto means that you wrote it yourself. So if you read a biography, is your life written by somebody else. So like you can write my biography, which means that you wrote about my life. Okay? An autobiography means I wrote it about my own life. Okay, so when you see auto, it means that they themselves wrote it about themselves. If you see biography, somebody else wrote it about them. Okay? So like if we read a biography about Socrates, well, Socrates didn't write about himself, it's a biography. But nowadays, you can probably read autobiographies about a lot of these popular people, like Magic Johnson has written an autobiography. He used to play basketball.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I'm serious.
so people nowadays write a lot of autobiographies. Okay. All right. Now, ecosystem is bio. Bio means life, living things. Abiotic. The prefix A, that's two prefixes. A and then bio. A means not. Bio means living, right? So, not living. So, if you break down science words, a lot of times it will allow you to figure out what they mean. Okay? So, in an ecosystem, you have living things and non-living things. And they all rely on each other. Think about it. Do we rely on non-living things?
Yeah.
Yes. Water. Water's not living, but we need it to survive. Sun. Sun's not living, but we need it to survive. Shelter. Okay? So things that are non-living, we need them there. The ecosystem entails both the living and non-living things. Then you come to what we call a biome. A biome is a large geographic area. It's basically that entire area has sort of the same types of animals, same types of plants. They have about the same type of temperature and climate. So when we think of biomes, we think of like the tundra. Okay, really cold temperatures, not very many plants and so on. We can think of a forest, specifically a rainforest or a deciduous forest. Okay, grassland, coastal land. Each one is going to have very different animals, very different plants. Think about it. Things that grow in a tundra, which are like lichens and mosses, okay, they could grow in a rainforest, but since you have all those big trees that are taking all the nutrients, they're probably not going to be there. So you want to think of as a biome as a big area, specific types of plants, specific types of animals, sort of the same kind of plant, okay? And then all those biomes come together to create our biosphere, which is just the Earth. Okay? Everything on Earth. All the living things, or the non-living things, be it in water, air, or land, and all the living things. Okay? So everything, all the non-living things in water, all the non-living things in the land, in the air, and then all your biotic factors, everything that's living here on Earth, is considered our biosphere. Okay? So, any questions over the levels of organization? Now, I will not ask you specifically, okay, give me the definition of biosphere. And they're not going to do that on the STAR test either. The reason you need to know these words is in case they have them within a question and you know what those words mean. Okay? So, any questions over that?
Nope.
Alright, so everybody turn to page 93 and start setting up.
92, wait.
92 is, you're gonna put this photo on page 92. So this photo is gonna go on page 92. I don't want you doing that right now. Page 93 is what I want you to set up so we can do our notes.